When dogs go crazy on every walk, we have to stop it fast. But many people are afraid that every dog trainer they called would just tell them to correct the dog, to use force, to just be obnoxious to the dog, which can be dangerous because there is no guarantee that the dog will not redirect to the person. And there is so much relief when I start working with people and tell them they don't have to use any corrections at all. Today, I want to introduce you to Rambo and his mom. Rambo was, or is, a huge staffy, so a very strong dog, and still we did not have to use any corrections. So stay tuned and have fun. Alright, so as I said, Rambo was a 4-year-old staffy, a really big guy. He was adopted from a shelter, and his mom just wanted to give him a nice new life, and she was really outdoorsy, so she loved to take him with her on hikes and just nature adventures and all those great things. And they worked pretty well, except if they came along another dog. And that was pretty much what was difficult on their everyday walks, because they lived in a neighborhood that was jam-packed with dogs. Everybody had a dog, and they were also living in an apartment building, so there was a dog there as well. And there was really no walk where they didn't meet anybody. So she had started to take him on a car ride 4 times a day to get him to go to the toilet somewhere outside their living area. But this was draining for her, right? Taking the dog for a ride 4 times a day, it's doable, but it's a lot. So they called a trainer, and this was somebody who used methods that are forbidden in my country, and for a good reason. So he did not do any assessment. He just took the dog, put a sleep lead on him, which is again forbidden in my country. But he did it anyway, and he tagged on that thing, and whenever Rambo saw another dog, he was not allowed to look at that other dog. But Rambo, being a really big dog and a really strong dog, it worked for the trainer, but it did not work for his mom. So the trainer just told her that she had to put the lead up right behind the ears, because that is a more sensitive area and that will be more effective. And she did that up to a point where Rambo would suddenly become very weird. He would walk around the house with a very low head, and he would just be very careful how he walked. He would be very careful how he laid down. He would just be overall very different. He would not be his just happy and fun self, and he would sleep a lot. So when I met them, he was still acting that way. So the first order of business was taking him to the vet, and to a specialized vet for orthopedic issues. Why orthopedic? Because of the weird head position. And they found that he had really hurt his neck. He had almost gotten a slip disc. It wasn't that bad, but it was obvious that he was in pain. So they did a little bit of physiotherapy and chiropractic and all those things, and he got better again. And we switched from the usual collar he had on, because he had started coughing a lot as well, to a harness. And since he was really strong, we had to use 2 leashes because otherwise his mom didn't feel safe enough to hold him, and this is just something that is sometimes needed. So one in the front and one in the back. The one in the back is the most important one because it's a shorter one and it prevents the harness from slipping. So the dog is not movement impaired, right? And the front leash only comes into action when things go south. So this is something that we try to avoid anyway, right? And what we did was we left one relaxing walk where they drove to an area where they didn't meet anybody. It was not far away, so they really could get there quickly, but it was something that helped them a lot because he could also just run around off leash there, and it was kind of a little break from training. The other 3 times Rambo had to go outside for potty breaks, we used for training. And we shifted the times a little bit. There was not so much room to play around with times because his mom had to work, right? But a little bit of freedom we used and switched times a little bit so we wouldn't run into that many dogs, and especially avoid the one that was living in the same building as Rambo. And for that dog, we also introduced a marker signal at home. So a signal that tells Rambo this is right, you will get a reward. Because that dog that was living in his building was a very barky dog. He barked for whatever reason a lot during the day, and it kind of upset Rambo. He would not bark, but you could see him tensing up. And we did not want that because it kind of associates that bark and that dog with tension, and we didn't want that. We wanted Rambo to just relax at home. So we started with just connecting that bark with good things. In the beginning, we used treats, and then we just weaned off the treats and started to use praise, which worked perfectly. And it was pretty quickly that Rambo did no longer react to that bark in any way. But in the hallway, it was very narrow, and we decided that it was a lot easier to avoid that one dog, at least until Rambo was cool outside. So all those things were really not yet training. They were, except for the barking thing, just management techniques. But they can bring so much difference. And up to that point, we did not use any corrections. And Rambo's mom was really loosening up when it comes to training. She was starting to trust the process, even though Rambo's diagnosis had shocked her, because she later told me that she would have never guessed that there are people outside who would actually take money for hurting her dog. And she's right about that. But it happened. And when we started the outside training process, you could see that as soon as they stepped outside, both of them tensed up. So Rambo got out the door and scanned the environment first. Then he put his nose to the ground, and he was in no man's land. He did not react to anything that was said to him. He did not take any treats. It was just not, he was not there anymore. And his mom, as soon as he started scanning, she did the same thing. And her grip on that leash tightened so much that her knuckles went white. So the first thing we started doing was practice going outside without tension. So we just locked in the bolt on the door that keeps it open, and we started inside with just doing a little bit of concentration and a little bit of, hey, look at me, and a little bit of search games so we can just relax that dog again. And slowly we took that outside. And since they had to go outside 3 times a day in their neighborhood, at least to give Rambo the option of relieving himself, there was a lot of practice opportunity. So it became a routine pretty quickly. And Rambo started to calm down, and he started to expect those nice things to happen before they went outside. And that is when his mom could relax as well. Very often we are told that we are the reason our dogs escalate because we are tense and we have to relax. And while our dogs do recognize our emotions and how tense we are, this is sometimes just asked too much, and we can go the other way around. For this team, it was just necessary to introduce something that is nice and fun and bonding for them because they were so tense, both of them, and they were completely disconnected from each other. They were just both with their attention on the outside world and no longer on each other. So this just little game time, and it took them a few minutes, not forever, right? And then they took that outside. So that the first thing Rambo did when he walked through that door was look at his mom and expect something nice to do, right? Because let's be honest, Staffies are dogs that are more goofball than dog, right? They are so fun and they are just always ready for something goofy. So it was pretty easy to ask Rambo to do something just a little bit goofy. So they again started a little game of just do a little search and look at me and do a little trick and whatever they were just in the mood for. And again, it loosened Rambo up and it loosened his mom up as soon as she saw him relax. And that way, those 3 potty breaks became just little game moments that were no longer tense, and both of them looked forward to going outside. And of course, as soon as we got Rambo listening, we introduced the actual training for his reactivity, and we started from a great distance and just looking at another dog and going a little bit away, looking at the other dog, going a little bit away, and just doing a little game of back and forth. And at that point, the relief of his mom was so visible. It was almost like she had taken off a straitjacket. She started smiling in training, and it was so great to see because up until that last aspect of the training, she expected something not that nice to come her way and her dog's way. And she knew she couldn't do that. She knew she would no longer want to do any training if this was how it's done. If there was no way around corrections, she would just live with his lunging and barking and things like that. And this is something that I find sad because for her, she had a bad experience with a trainer. Okay, that's one thing. But very often, we expect training to be just about corrections because there is so much out there that is just about corrections. We get bombarded with videos and TV shows and all those things that are just about corrections, and it's not necessary. Rambo became a very easygoing dog. He did not like other dogs that much. He did not really care about them. He did find some doggy friends on hikes. That was fun to know, because his mom just told me one day that they were hiking and they didn't pick the route as carefully. I was a little worried about that, but She told me that she had seen another dog on a wider path of the way, and she had Rambo off leash, and that dog was off leash as well. And at first, she thought about calling Rambo, but he didn't seem too interested, and the other dog didn't seem too interested either. But then, at a little rest stop, they just bounced into each other, and suddenly the dogs were nose on nose, and it worked out fine. Rambo just sniffed the other dog was completely relaxed, and Rambo went his way. He was really tense, but he could just walk away from that. And the other dog was really very relaxed about that. And she got talking to those people, and they found out that they were living in the same area, and they really hit it off, the dogs as well as the people, and they started going hiking together. So Rambo had found a hiking buddy, which was not part of the training, of course, but it was really nice because Rambo's mom had adopted him as a dog who was not compatible with other dogs at all. So seeing him with another dog just ignoring the hell out of each other was awesome. And that was the point where she started trusting her gut. Her gut had told her not to leash Rambo because it was fine, and she was right about that. And trusting her instincts also helped her with training in her neighborhood, because there were some dogs that were more difficult for Rambo, there were some dogs that were easier for Rambo. So at first she really had to watch his body language very, very closely to see when he reaches the point of no return and would start his reaction. So she had to interrupt that early. But after a while, she just got a feeling about it. She no longer had to analyze him very closely. She just had developed an instinct for it. And this is where training becomes really easy, right? You no longer have to film the situation. You no longer have to analyze videos to see where you could improve things. You just go with your gut, and it works. And for me, this was really awesome to see. Another dog who did not need any corrections, and this is just normal. They don't need it. But seeing the relief of a pet parent who expected dog trainers to just be somebody who would abuse their dogs, this is a step in the right direction, right? So be brave, go against the grain, don't do what everybody else does, and go without corrections. It's much more fun, it's much more sustainable, and it works. So have fun with your dog, and we'll see each other next time. Bye!